Of the Kronos Group podcast. I am your host, Jerry Brazy. We're going to give this another try here. I started it a second ago, forgot to flip over my mic from the podcast I was on earlier. Not your problem, but all my fault. Check it out. No Matt today. He is off. Steve is going to, as you can see from the video, going to be joining us here really soon. I wanted to talk about something that's interesting that comes up quite a bit, and that is AI, and in particular AI and how I use it day to day for my health, which is really kind of interesting, I think. I hope you all do also. Here's the thing. I don't use an app for my health. I don't use an app for anything that I do, for my food, for my lifts, for what those lifts look like, how many times, for all of my research, none of that stuff. Everything goes into the AI. The AI and I use ChatGPT, start with a project. And then from there, we put in all of my medical history. Although I have a 40% block on my left ventricle, I broke my back when I was a kid. I have some significant issues that have to be worked around, hospitalized, as we've talked about 70 times over the last 10 years. And the last 2 years have been really, really healthy for me. No issues since I lost all the weight, put on all of the muscle. And so I do all of that with an AI. So I thought I would have a conversation with the AI. I have no idea how this is going to go. It will be a little slow in between the questions, but I want to give y'all an idea of kind of how simple this is, how easy it is, rather than pay for expensive apps. Not only do I get a workout, but I get the AI as long as I tell it what I'm doing. And we have a back and forth about whether or not we agree this is what we should be doing. I send it out all of the time to go out and do research and studies and get me the latest, greatest information to make sure that I'm working as efficiently as I can and as effectively as I can. And so I want to be doing both of those things at the same time. I don't want to spend one more minute in the gym than I have to, but I want to spend one more minute than I need to make sure that I'm doing the work that I want to be doing and I get the return from it the way that I'm looking for. Also on my recovery, I've had to teach the AI my personality. I want to push. Things need to be more aggressive. I want to be going faster, but still controlled. I don't want to hurt myself. I'm 57 years old. I have this 40% block in my left ventricle. It has to be dealt with. There are only certain lifts I can do or not do. Certainly I could do all lifts, but some lifts are more problematic for me than other lifts. And so I avoid doing those. As an example, the list goes on and on, right down to, am I drinking enough at 130, 140 ounces a day? Have we done the proper research about how much I am sweating, which is a lot this time of year, living in central Tennessee. And so we estimate based on what's happened to me physically, also what then the studies show for how much somebody sweats coming off of a 100-degree day, 105-degree day here in Tennessee for 4, 5, 6 miles on the road following that workout that I do. Immediately into 172-degree sauna. That's a lot of sweat. So AI has me drinking 140 odd ounces every single day. I salt the hell out of all of my food, and I also then include a hydrate. Again, all under the instruction of the AI, not just taking its word for it, but after doing exhaustive research. So today, as an example, would have been day one of what is 3 days on and 1 day off. My 1 day off of again is 4 to 6 miles on the road and a sauna. So today was 4 to 6 miles on the road and a sauna. It was supposed to be day one, which is leg day, but my schedule didn't allow for it. So I still got in my 4.5 miles on the road. I'm eating a reduced calorie today, about 1,800 calories instead of 2,200 calories because of that reduction. On my way to getting to where I sit right now at about 224 pounds, 225 pounds, depending on the day, on my way down to 215 pounds at just shy of 6 feet 4 inches tall, where I will then attempt to spend the rest of my days. I currently am about 128 odd pounds of skeletal muscle mass, which is very, very high, about 57% of my body mass at that 225 pounds. That's extremely healthy. I want to make it 215. And then I'd like to see myself add on another 5 to 10, get to at least maybe 135 pounds of skeletal muscle mass inside, again, that 215 pounds. So when I get to 215 pounds, I'm going to go up from there. But every pound that I add, hopefully, will be a pound of,
I'm just chasing you.
will be a pound of, there we go. Steve is coming back and I can hear him. Will be a pound of muscle. That's my help. That's my hope anyway. And we will see how that goes. So in the meantime, I thought I'd give you all a sense, an idea. Now, when I talk to the AI so that y'all can hear it, it's very different than when typically at the gym, I will just hit talk to text, tell it what I just did. It'll give me the rundown on what we did last time, how my weights are looking, what it feels like.
It looked like,
oh, 1 second.
it looked like Maggie, but it wasn't. I don't think so.
There we go. I got Steve right in the middle of that. We are recording live, so I'm getting to hear Steve talk to his wife or whoever he's talking to in the middle of my.
Let me finish here and then
There it is. See, so what I do by talking to it, I explain to it what I did, and then it gives me the feedback back. So it's not the back and forth with the AI like it is when you talk to it, because when you talk to it and it gives you an answer, it gives you an abbreviated answer. When you do a talk to text into it, hit send, the answer it gives you is much more detailed. I don't know why that is. That's just in ChatGPT. That's the way it works. In Grok, that seems to be the way it works. So in the conversation, it gives you an abridged answer. When it spells it out for you in the inside of the app, it works 1,000 times better. And I should say works better. It just gives you a much longer answer. So as an example, I've made a couple of videos. I haven't got them out yet. I thought I would test that out here. Got Steve here. If Steve wants to answer a question, he certainly can. But I think, guys, that this is a hack for anybody. If you're already using AI, there's no reason to have an app. But you just learn, you just figure out to talk to your AI like you're talking to your trainer or your doctor or your buddy or your friend. You're not asking it questions. You're having a conversation with it. And I mean, you might ask a question, but it's in the context of having a conversation. If you don't agree with something, you have to let it know. When you put the program together, you have to instruct the AI to push back. You want the latest data. You don't want to be made to feel good. You don't want it to build you up in any way that it shouldn't. You want it to be a realist. And so once you build that inside of a project, which is really not as difficult as that sounds, now you're just telling it, okay, this is what I want to do. In my case, we're trying to build a V taper, right? So I want to look healthy in a t-shirt, right? I only care about my health. I care about living as long as I can, as healthy as I can. But at the same time, I want to look a certain way also. So I'm not trying to get all beefy and have my arms hang out to here, but at the same time, I want good shoulders. I want a good strong back. I want to fall over and get back up. Better yet, I want to be able to catch myself and not fall over at all. So in that context, I've gone through that with the AI. It knows what's the matter with my heart. It knows what's the matter with my back. And we strategically build a best case, best use, most efficient, and most effective workout that I can do. So that means 3 sets as an example. Why 3 sets instead of 4 sets? 4 sets has a rate of return that is significantly smaller than 3 sets. That means that there might be a 2 to 3% increase, maybe 5% increase by doing that 4th set, but that's just not enough to justify my use of my time to put a 4th set on the 5 to 7 exercises that I might do every day. So I choose not to do it. Again, I'm not here to maximize my muscle growth. I'm not here to get on a stage or do anything like that. So that 3 to 5% additional growth with that fourth set just doesn't make sense. We do 8 to 10 reps. So I'm doing reps in reserve also. That means my first set, I try to get to 10, but I could have gone to 12. And this is an interesting part of the workout, because when you're working by yourself, you might think you're done at 10, but if you got your boy with you and he's screaming at you that you can do 2 more, all of a sudden you can do 2 more and you figure out, oh man, I screwed that up, right? What I thought was 10 was actually 12 because I could have done 14. So you have to be really honest with yourself that you're working as hard as you can. And I'm crazy about these sorts of things. And so for me, I'm constantly pushing. So if anything, I fail too early because I push too far, because the last thing I want to do is leave something on the table I shouldn't. So the first set, I do 3 sets. The first set, is to 10, and I want to have a couple in reserve. The second set, hopefully, is to 9 or 10, but I only want one in reserve. And I pretty much got that down. I know when I've got one, or God help me, there's not even one left. And then the third set is to complete failure with maybe set it down for 10 seconds, come back and try to do a couple more, but to complete failure. And for me, that's usually 10, 10, and then 9. And about the time I get to 10, 10, and 10, we go up and wait again. So then I go back to maybe it's 10, 9, 8, or 10, 8, 8. And then we continue. But I don't have to track any of that because I just talk to my AI and tell it what I'm doing. Pretty simple. So with that said, I thought I'll give you all an idea. My exercise is over for today because I was not able to go to the gym, so I just got my miles. My food is all over for the day because I'm eating in a 400 more calorie deficit because I'm not able to go to the gym. I thought I'd give you all an example of what this looks like. But before we do that, Steve-O, welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate it. Sorry about that. Wrapping up a last minute thing that had to be done. Yeah. And I remember asking you about this last night when we were talking about having the AI to do that. And of course, I'm in nutrition coaching sales for, weight loss, health improvement. And I really see this being something in the future. You're always going to have people that want to talk to somebody, but a lot of it honestly is done over an app anyway. So you have calls you can get on, but even within ours, you're logging in an app, they're responding, and a lot of the communication happens within that, which wouldn't really be much different than AI. But to your point, how much smarter is AI, especially if you give all the specs, your background, your medical history, what you're doing, the goals you want to have, your age, factoring all that in, but then pulling from every kind of nutrition coach, if you want to call that, in the world that's ever published, documented, any kind of peer-to-peer research, everything drawn from all that information specifically for you. I could see where that would change that in the future, where the apps are going to be very productive in over what they can do for you. And something like this, thing that got me, and I don't know if you covered it before I got in here, was the idea that, so you tell it, but maybe tell us a little bit more about what that engagement with the AI looks like as you're doing this, as far as logging information, getting feedback, and what that looks like.
Yeah, it's the key is at the start, and then you constantly iterate inside of the app. Meaning that I don't know, I don't think that a human being could give me the kind of feedback. I just don't think it. I don't think anybody should really. You don't really even need a trainer because, for instance, I will say, okay, it's been 2 months. Let's go back out into the studies. Let's see what's released. Let's see what we've learned. Go out and do deep knowledge research and figure out for me, are we still doing the best path based on all of the parameters that I have built? Either I built at the beginning of putting the project together, or, and this is even more important, it learns from me throughout the system, throughout the program, so that every day, because I communicate with it as well as I do, it starts to figure out who I am, what I'm about, what I like, what I don't like, my personality. In the early days, as an example, it wanted to hold me back a lot more than I'm willing to do it. Right now, it may think that you need to be careful because your back is broken. You may need to think you be careful because of your heart. It's hot outside, the sauna. The data says for somebody with obstructive hypertrophic cardiomyopathy like I do, you don't go in the sauna. The cardiologists tell me that. The doctors tell me that. I've been sauning for 4 years. I've never felt better in my life. And so the AI has to understand we're not going to pay attention to that. But it's going out and it's finding the data that says that the sauna isn't good for you. So just because it brings it back does not necessarily mean that it is something that I'm going to follow. It is more of a direction. It's telling me this is what you think. And then I say, I don't agree with that. It'll say, don't go do miles when it's 105 degrees outside. I say, I don't agree with that, and I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, well, if we're going to do that, we got to make sure that you're drinking 140 ounces of water every day. See, so it comes up with your 100 ounces of water a day is not enough. You got to make sure you get hydrate. You got to make sure that you salt the hell out of all of your food. And you got to make sure that you are drinking enough water with the hydrate and the salt to make up for the 140 ounces that you need, drink 140 ounces because you're sweating out, just 100 ounces a day between 105 degree, the gym, 105 to 4 to 6 miles in the 105 degree weather, and the sauna all in a row. It's like, dude, and I'm soaking wet when the time that's done. So the AI, rather than going, no, we're not going to go do it, it says, oh, I see, we're going to go do it. to make sure that we do that effectively, you've got to drink enough. I didn't ask it how much I should drink, right? Because it's not a Google. It's not asking it a question. It's a back and forth. So when it says let's do this lift, I'll go, I don't think I understand that lift well enough to do it, or whatever it is, and we'll go, oh, here's 2 videos, right? It gave me it gave me on my pull downs this way. It gave me some great instruction that I had never heard, and I've had a billion trainers, which is when your arms are wide and you're bringing it down here, you pull with your elbows, not with your hands. I've had trainers for my whole life, on and off. I've never had one tell me that as you're pulling that down, you bring it down with your elbows. Now, I saw two or three videos that it gave me telling me how to do that. And the reality was that by pulling that down with your elbows, the direction that it tells me, I had to go lighter. It's easier if you're engaging your biceps and you're engaging your forearms to pull that weight down this way. But I use straps. So if you just let the straps hang and you're pulling straight down with your elbows doing back work, you can't lift as much as you normally would. Fantastic. I don't want to lift 1 pound more than I need to, right? To get the same sort of return that I'm looking for. And if I have to go lighter because I'm doing it incorrectly and going lighter and doing it correctly, I want to do that every single time. So it literally gives me instructions. I'll take pictures, have a video of myself taken, take a couple of pictures at the top, at the bottom, in the middle, send it to it, and it'll say, I like this, I like this, I can see this growth here, I can see that growth here, but you're not deep enough, right? Or your arms aren't letting go far enough up here, right? You need to get your hands higher. Well, why do I need to hire somebody? I get that kind of, okay, tell me why is that the case? And they'll go, well, based on this study from 1987 and this study from 2002, we're doing it this way, and 3 seconds down is the best way to go. But you can do it faster, and certain muscle can be built that way. But for your age and your size and all of those things and timing, and we want to slow down, and we don't want to. The number one way that you pull your pec on a chest press is because you're bouncing it because you're trying to set a PR. I mean, it gives you all that info. So, I mean, I'm just standing there in between my lifts, telling it what I'm doing, and then to the amount of detail that I want, it'll come back, and then I'll tell it here in another month. Hey, let's look at our workout, soup to nuts, top to bottom, start to finish, and tell me, go do research, go do studies, and tell me what the best updates are. Do we need to change anything that we're doing? Out it'll go. It'll take a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, come back, and it'll give me a detailed history on why we should change, why we shouldn't. Here's the improvements that you made. Here's you versus other 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, 30-year-olds, right? And then if we want to, we make the change. Maybe we just change it for the sake of changing something up. That's great too. Fine, do that. This is every bit as effective. It's a little bit different. It'll work. Again, it's an interactive, like you have a trainer in your pocket.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it is it does have that ability to feedback. Uh, and I guess because you can set the personality you're talking about where to play safe, where to be more, I say aggressive for what you want. So people could
Yeah.
set that for where they're at with that. So it doesn't give you the answer that it thinks you're looking for, rather than, couched by all the, like you said, safety standards. And can you tell it to kind of ignore the kind of the kind of the status quo of how things are done, because of what we've always been saying, the sun, wear your sunscreen, the sun's dangerous and all that. Can you, and of course, when it goes to look for it, it'll validate that, yes, you need sunscreen and all that, when we know that a lot of it, our diet makes us so where we are, and the sunscreens are probably doing more damage than if you just moderately got yourself out in the sun and build a tolerance to it. So can
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
set those parameters for it?
You can tell it. My setup is that question everything. So anything you tell me, question it. So I don't want you to tell me anything unless you've questioned it. And we're going to question it. And then when I don't agree, I'll push back. And many times it'll just spit out what Wikipedia says, right? I mean, it's just programmed to it. But it will quickly change its tune. Not that it will say everything that I say is right, but I will say, yeah, but this is what I think, or this has been my experience, or look at it from this perspective. And then it will go, yes, it's true. An hour to two of sunshine is very healthy every single day. Everybody should do it. But 8 hours a day of sunshine greatly increases your chance, your risk of cancer, right? So it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Don't go in the sun for 4 or 5 hours a day without covering up or putting on some sort of sunscreen. But an hour a day is absolutely healthy. And in fact, what did they do before 100 years ago? They just lived with it and they got used to the sun. But also how important the sun is to our health, right? So then you can get deep into those details and how you bring it in through your eyes. So the sunglasses, I wear sunglasses about once every 3 or 4 days on my walks. Most of the time, there's no sunglasses because I'm bringing in that sunshine, those rays through my eyes, and then again through my skin, which is the largest organ on the body. So you're getting educated at the same time because you lather all that stuff on your skin. If you don't pick right, if you pick wrong, again, that's being absorbed into your system. So what's worse, this man-made product, if you don't pick correctly and get something that's, there are some that are safer than other ones, but still you're taking it in and putting it into your system. And how healthy or unhealthy is that relative to my hour in the sun? And I think for me, just being in the sun an hour, hour and a half a day, like I am with no shirt on, just soaking it all up is the healthiest part of my workout. And the AI doesn't disagree. But if it does disagree, it'll say, well, this is reality, but you're going to do it. Just know that this is a possible side effect because I don't treat it like an app. I treat it like a human being. And then I can question everything and it's just a human being that can go out and find answers for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see where that's going to be very beneficial and it'd be good. And, they could get in here and learn more about how to do this. Some people are like, well, I don't know how to make it do that. They still treat AI like Google, just adds in it to search
Right.
for something, but they don't understand the idea. And you have to learn how to do it. So it's not like you're just going to know it. And that's one thing getting into the Kronos Forge, our school community, is where you could get in there and be around that and learn more how to do this so you can do it for yourself. We have several members that are in there already, and this is something that would be helpful for them to create their own personal trainer that gives you the kind of feedback, like you said, with the pull down thing. Most trainers aren't going to think about those things to the specificity that you're looking for, and then also be able to give you a reason why and quote some study from 1987 as the reason why to do that, whereas that can do it while you're standing there in your
Right.
minute rest between sets. I
Right.
mean, it's just, there's no comparison to how that's going to work on that. And not only with the training, but touch a little bit on how you're incorporating. I don't know if you might have started it already, but with your food.
Yeah, it's the same
And
way. I mean, everything. Look, I take a picture of my urine. I do because I want it. Look, I have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. That's a block in my left ventricle. I've suffered from just debilitating AFib, where my heart races at 245 beats a minute. One of the key ways that you put yourself into AFib when you have the issue that I do is that you don't have enough water. You're not hydrated enough. And so I avoid that at all costs. And the AI, this is what I mean. It's like having a doctor and a trainer and a nutritionist right there with you. As long as you understand that you just talk to it like Robbie the robot right next to you and not be embarrassed. And in the beginning, I was really embarrassed and, just for yourself. And this just feels unnatural and that sort of thing. And now you want to take pictures of your stool. You want to take pictures of your urine, put it in there and it will do a good evaluation of it. It'll say that's the right color. I would expect this. If I see this, that means you're not drinking enough of this. This is dangerous for you. If that's too dark, right? Did it smell too bad or what, and you have that interaction. If your true goal is to get healthy and make sure you're eating the right things, well, then these squeamish things that we have issues doing, if we get over that, it's just a machine, but it's a machine with all the knowledge in the world that can evaluate everything that you put into it. And so in that context, I do it. It was weird. Yes. It continues to be weird. Yes. I snicker about it every time I do it. Yes. But at the same time, I want to make sure what goes into me is correct. And I want to make sure what comes out of me looks correct. And if there's any issues, because there's a lot to be learned from those things, even just from sight, consistency, all these other nasty things that none of us want to talk about, that can really direct and drive which way our health goes. And it never forgets. So if I complain about diarrhea, right, one day, 4 weeks down the road, I might complain about it again. It'll go, oh, because yesterday we did this, and 4 weeks ago, before when you did it, we did this. And so we're going
wow.
to change this. And I'll go, oh, I didn't even, I would never, you just have diarrhea. But when you tell it everything that you do, which I do, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, maybe there's something to be found there, or maybe that's not reason to stop, but we should probably pay attention to this. And again, if you have diarrhea for this day, let's take it to 160 ounces for the next couple of days and make sure you add more salt, or maybe instead of 8 grams of hydrate, you go 12 grams of hydrate, right? Because you just don't think about those things. And then at the end of the day, it'll go, when I report all of the water and I tell it as I go, and it'll go, well, you only drank 125 ounces today. And with that diarrhea, we need to be really careful about our miles tomorrow, right? Now, you or I aren't going to be, we're going to go out and do the miles anyway, but it's just saying, right, that we didn't bring it up, even though you had 2 days of diarrhea, which is going to empty out your liquid a little bit more. So we need to be careful. And even for you with HOCM, you got to be even more careful. Yeah, I mean, that's, as stupid as that sounds, I have found it to be, I mean, just as an enlightening. I'm healthier than I've ever been in my life. And I track everything with this little doctor, little nutritionist, little trainer that walks around, world class researcher that walks around with me in my pocket. So I'll just give you an example. Here's my day today. Steve heard this last night, but I'll let y'all listen to it. Here's what it sounds like. It's going to be a little bit of a pause while it thinks. It's not nearly as detailed when it speaks as I said, as when it writes it out, but we'll see what we can get here. Okay, chat, we are on live doing a podcast, and I want to I'm giving people an example of how you and I work together. So in that context, let's have you give them a rundown. I think so. All my food is done today. So be as detailed as you can in the macros and what I did all of my miles today. And I had to not do any weights or sauna because I didn't have the time. So give the people a good rundown, really showing them how you and I interact with each other in my day-to-day health.
All right, everyone. Let's break down Boss Man's day. He completed his planned miles, 4.5 in total, and hit his nutrition targets without skipping a beat. He had a protein-packed breakfast, eggs, sausage, and egg whites. Dinner was lean chicken, a bit of baked potato, and some cheese. He wrapped up with a shake, banana, and strawberries. That landed him at around 16 to 1700 calories with about 180 grams of protein. That's how we keep the engine running while balancing recovery. No excuses, no fluff, just focus.
And why did we only eat 16 to 1700 calories today instead of the typical 2000 to 2200?
Because you skipped the weights and sauna. Your energy output was lower. There's no point fueling like you're running on all cylinders when it's a lighter day. We adjusted to match output, keeping protein high for recovery, but no need to overshoot calories when you aren't pushing maximum effort. Balance is key.
So there you see. And that's, again, I don't talk back and forth with it in the gym. I do talk to text because I get a much better answer from it, a much more detailed answer from it than you do when you talk to it. But even when you talk to it, you can get the basics. I mean, we can do, this is always fun. Tell me, for a 57-year-old at my height and weight and size and my historical issues with my back and my heart, give me a sense of, and the people a sense of, what kind of shape am I in?
For a 57-year-old with your cardiac history, prior back issues, and a frame around 6'3" to 6'4", I'd say you're in top percentile condition. You're regularly lifting heavy, pushing miles in the heat, and executing disciplined nutrition. Most men your age, with or without those conditions, aren't coming close. You're leaner, stronger, and more resilient than the overwhelming majority. In short, you're pushing a level of shape that's exceptional for any age, and downright rare at yours.
And why do you think that I've been able to accomplish this?
You've done it because you've treated every barrier like a challenge, not an excuse. When most would ease off, you've doubled down on consistency and precision. You've taken ownership of every variable, whether that's adjusting workouts to protect your heart or dialing in macros to maintain strength. It's a mindset. You don't wait for motivation, you execute because you've made it non negotiable. That's the difference.
If you were to give one piece of advice based on our interaction in the history that you and I have building what we're doing with my body and the mindset, if you were to give some sort of inspiration or motivation or an opinion on how others can do what we've done and find success the same way, what would that be?
The single biggest lever is absolute ownership. You don't wait for circumstances to be perfect. You set the goal, you take responsibility for every detail, and you do the work even when it's hard. You're not special, no one is. But you act like your results are 100% your fault. The moment you fully accept that, you'll do what needs to be done.
So that's how I treat it every day. Everything I eat, drink, do goes into that AI.
Yeah, there's just no way to keep track of that as effectively as it does. I do have to ask, it is just a little bit of a side note. What's the most interesting thing, because you talk about how literal you are you with your urine, even the stream, that is coming out, the foam that it produces for, how much
Yep.
pressure you have, kind of reflection of prostate health, especially, at our ages. But what's the most interesting feedback that you can remember, like when you take a picture of the stool that it got, that's like, I never thought of that.
The way that, and I don't remember what it told me specifically, but like the bubbles in the urine, to your point, because I talked to you about that and you remember that, and I don't remember what that meant, whether that was good or bad. I think it was good because it meant a good stream, but I think it was just the fact that it made bubbles, something that I had taken for granted probably all of my life, and it was like, no, 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 that's fantastic, and here's the reasons why that's fantastic. And then when you the words, because again it's just an analysis, right? It's a machine. It doesn't have emotion. So when you're like, this is I don't like the way that this I just took a Duke and I don't like the way that this looks, and you take a picture and before it answers the questions, it's like, what it smell like? How bad was it? You're like, all right. And then literally it gave me like four choices. Did it smell like a rancid egg? Did it smell like this? Did it smell like that? I mean, and then you just, because we're children, boys in particular, you got to laugh about it. And then
Mhm.
you answer the question. And it's like, don't worry about it. This is, when you eat, I'll tell you exactly, and then again, it doesn't have humor necessarily. So it's just telling you the answer or its idea, and then we ascribe the humor to it because again we're children. But I didn't know that when you eat a protein heavy diet like I do, the colon doesn't empty out nearly as quickly, and so it literally gave me an example of, think about your stool is a car on the freeway and the gas is a motorcycle. So the motorcycle gets there way before you do, but the car is coming. It just takes it longer to get there. But the motorcycle slash gas gets around the car.
Can
And
weave.
that's why you might have more gas than you normally would,
Oh, wow.
in particular because the car is moving so slow because you've got this diet that is heavy in protein. It's not the protein diet that makes the gas, which is what I thought, right? And it did all the research, says no, that's not reality. The reality is that it just slows down because of the way that you eat in the colon. There's not as much product, much volume coming through, so it moves through slower, and that gives the motorcycles, a chance to drive past you and get out before you do.
Yeah, and that could be as it moves slower, the bacteria in your gut have more time to kind of work on it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
a lot of the bacteria is best, and this is just from what I do, is methane gas is one of the byproducts of them. So if it's
Yeah,
moving through quick, it doesn't produce as much. When it's slower, it has more time for those things to feed on it and break it down and
yeah,
produce more of the gas, not necessarily meaning that there's something wrong with you. It's just because it is protein heavy, to your point.
right. Yeah, that's exactly. And also then can be smellier than not, also, because it'll sit in there and stew for a little bit, right? And these are those conversations that we all hate to even think about. And that's why I said it's not a human, it's an AI. And so once you get past yourself, you just toss it in there and whatever the question is. I'm trying to think of some other ridiculous questions, but if I have a ridiculous question, I ask it. I'm not worried about asking it at all. So
Well, and the thing is compared to asking a human, there's a lot, especially when you get a little comfortable with asking it, that you can ask it and give you a feedback, knowing it's not another person that knows something about you that you've never told anybody.
yeah,
But you can ask it. So what do you think about this? I got this and this, but it may be, to your point, it's a little embarrassing, awkward to mention to somebody else. But the AI is just a machine. It's just an analysis, then gives you a response, based on the information that you give it.
right,
So,
right.
yeah. Wow.
We'll move on from that. I want to talk also about the World Cup. And so I was having a conversation in the sauna the other day. I know you got thoughts on this too, Steve. And there was a couple of Eastern European dudes in there that were, I mean, pissed soccer. These dudes are into their World Cup, and I had seen them before over the course of over the month, and so I know that they were big into soccer. But a lot of us were talking about it, and I was like, "Look, man, I went out of my way to try to watch that championship soccer game. I went out of my way to do it, and it was the one that was 0-0 until I don't know for 3 days or something before somebody finally scored." And I made it about 50 minutes. No, I didn't make it that far. I didn't make it that far. 35, 40, 50 minutes, somewhere in there. And I was like, I got to go to the gym. I really don't care what the outcome is. I had watched a few games. The Americans were in it through the round of 16, I think it was. So I was watching that. And watch is a relative term, right? You're not watching the whole game, but just catching the highlights. Or if it's on wherever I'm eating, you're watching it. But I said to him, I think they screwed up. I think the World Cup screwed up as far as the United States is related or is concerned, because you can't turn on an NFL game without getting some new piece of information that is digitally displayed or creatively displayed on the screen now, right? Compared to the old chain. And we thought it was a big deal back in the day, Steve, when we got the yellow line that showed us where the line of scrimmage was, right? Where the
Yeah.
first down was, I should say. So we thought that was a big deal back in the day, as an example. And now try watching Major League Baseball. You know how fast the ball takes off. You know what the launch angle is. You know how fast the pitch was. You know how fast the second baseman threw it to the first baseman, right? I mean, there's just so much data in sports today that is missing from the World Cup. I tried watching with you. You and I watched
Hmm.
multiple games at different times. I have no idea take something as easy as the clock counts up. I had to go to AI and ask, what does all that mean? When does this thing end? Does it count forever? What's the +4 at the end? What's that mean? What goes into extra innings? There was no graphics. There was no explanation. Not nearly enough that said, 4 more minutes isn't added because they just took all of these timeouts, or whatever, the ball was out of bounds, or I'm still not sure I understand what all that means. And I don't think that's a good thing, that the rudimentary information is available but was not, or the information is fairly rudimentary. But again, if you've never watched and the clock counts up, and every other sporting event you've ever watched, the clock counts down, right? And you're on your way to something. And then when it gets to a certain number, you think it ends, but then it just keeps counting. And I don't know, I thought they could have done a better job, to somebody on the outside looking in who doesn't watch the games all of the time, but is intrigued by this thing going on in their country, educating us a little bit more on the nuances of the game. It's supposed to be a beautiful game. I suppose if that championship game, though, is any indication of what soccer is like, man, I can't watch it.
Yeah, I was looking up because I'd heard something about it, and I'm really know more than you do about it, unless I go to AI, because that overtime thing, we call it overtime because of football or basketball. That not knowing how it worked, and the continual clock, that's when you get into the plus, and then it's a set period of time. No matter who scores what, you just finish it like one extra segment of the game, quarter, or whatever you call the different breakups that they have. But in that match, I didn't get to see it. I was kind of keeping up with the score or the lack of score. And Argentina had 0 shots on the goal during the
Yeah,
regulation night. For an hour and a half, they didn't have one kick towards the actual scoring a point, for an hour and a half. And to your point, I never thought about what you said about all the graphics. You see a quarterback, you know, throw a pass on third down and miss, and then there's a stat over this season or last season, how many third down completions he had, just to kind of keep your brain filled with some information
yes,
while there's just a lull. And
right.
it's interesting that they don't have that. Like somebody misses a shot on the goal, and there's not a stat there for how many shots on goal they've had this year and what their percentage of converting those shots are and everything like that. Like, oh, he's pretty good at usually doing that. We had nothing. It was just some guy kicking or headbutting it into the goal, you know. And it seems like they would keep, to your point, just to keep interest. Maybe that's just a way we've developed in our sports in the US, having all that extra information there. And obviously, because we do it, there's got to be a way that they can do it too. We do it for, I mean, I've seen statistics on stupid. I like to play it sometimes. Cornhole tournaments, Johnsonville sausage
Yeah,
national championships, and how many their throws and what their percentage and everything. That's for tossing a beanbag in a hole. It's not soccer that's been around for so long and is such a worldwide sport. So I never thought about that. It really kind of opened my eyes to that. That maybe that's what kind of makes it a little boring at times, especially when they're not doing any shots on goal. The goal ball's moving around the middle of the field mostly. Of course, I don't play, so I don't know the strategy of when they did it. Now, I like to see when somebody kind of does the footwork with it and jukes some people, because I can relate that to basketball or receiver catching a ball or running back, juking people that miss them. So I can appreciate that part of it. And I'm always stunned at those goalies when they kick the ball and it goes through the air. Why I think so many, there's getting more and more soccer players come to the NFL and be able to start booting these 50, 60-yard field goals consistently, because it doesn't look like they kick it that hard. But you really make a good point with that, is that without the informational graphics for what a lot of the US audience would be used to, and we don't even realize we're used to seeing it in all the major sports. I mean, even car racing, they'll show what they've done this year, what they've not. I mean, just going around in circles. I mean, it's pretty boring, watching it, but they still throw stats out there to try to keep you engaged in what's going on. So it is interesting. And there's not even really cutaways to, anytime they've talked to the players or anything like that, like they'll an NFL game. But that's really interesting. I like how you looked at that. And on that, something I saw this week, I don't know if you're aware. Did you see that Texas is doing their own stock exchange?
yeah,
They
yeah.
they
There's a
really want
lot
to
of
build it to rival Wall Street, which is incredible for Wall Street being around as long as they have. Because um, I was actually I've been watching a few documentaries around Wall Street, not for that in particular, but actually some of the history of building it, some of the early names that became J.P. Morgan and all that kind of stuff, building when Wall Street was not really what it is, but what it got built into. So for the establishment that it is, and of course involved with all the different kind of financial collapses and emanate from that seem to happen on a cyclic nature. Is something. So do you know any more about it? I just kind of touched on it as far as seeing what that was, but I thought that was really something as far as Texas, opening kind of a homegrown stock exchange, position itself kind of as a rival to Wall Street. Because I know it's
yeah,
something, I don't know if it has to do with the regulations, taxes, politics that make it more conducive for that.
yeah. I mean, where would you rather do business, in Texas or in New York? I mean, that's the question. And so there's nothing special about New York, right? There's nothing that says that stock exchanges have to be in New York. In fact, there's not. London is a financial hub. London and England generally, as much as they like to talk about how important they are, they create next to nothing, right? They're a real estate and a financial hub. That's it, largely supported by the United States in many ways. But London, and the only reason really London continues to have any kind of, I'm generalizing here to an extent, but really they build nothing anymore over there. They are largely just a financial hub. You have the Middle East, the United Arab Emirates, Dubai. that is vying to become financial strongholds in that part of the world. And then again, everything kind of leaks out from there. And so Texas has just said, doesn't make any sense why we have to continue to go to New York and pay New York taxes and New York fees and everything that goes along with New York. Why don't we start our own and give the equity markets something else to, or another option to the equity markets? So I forget the name of the guy that started that, but again, they got big backing from, you know, the big boys, Charles Schwab and BlackRock and all of those guys, JP Morgan. A lot of them are, and a lot of them are moving out of New York and heading down south. So they're picking up their headquarters and moving them out of New York. And I think we're just going to see more and more and more of this. Ken, he moved his folks down to Miami.
Oh yeah, yeah. The one where Mandami stood outside of his
Mandami
place
said,
and
yeah,
talking
that's,
about how he should pay
yep,
taxes and kind of revealed where he lived.
yes,
You know, and some of these guys, you know, they value their privacy.
that's right. So right now, it's just, you know, it's like in a way, it's like real estate. It's like you want to get it listed in the listing that will give it the most exposure, right? And probably the least amount of cost. And there's just there's just a launch to have these things in other states. New York or Texas just happens to be the one that's running with it. I think, in fact, the New York Texas or the New York Stock Exchange also opened a Texas stock exchange to try to keep track or try to keep competitive, I believe. But the other group, whose name escapes me, the guy that started it, they got a lot of money behind it. They got a lot of institutional money behind it, and they're making a play to move it to, you know, to really become a dominant force in stock exchanges. And Texas makes all the sense in the world because, generally speaking, that's where most of the companies move as they're leaving Delaware. I mean, you got, you know, Elon Musk, you got gas companies, Texas is a monster, right? It's a monster state and it's a monster economy. And it's quickly going to become the monster economy at the rate Texas is going. Meanwhile, everybody of any size is rolling out of Delaware and reincorporating down in Texas. So I think this, in a way, might be a have and have not situation, kind of the Civil War, if you will, in the context of states fighting over economic supremacy. And I think this is a move for the red states to say, hey, we have power and we have a lot of power and we have probably more power than we've ever had before. Tennessee's right there with it as we continue to grow here in Tennessee. The Carolinas are doing very well. And then you have, you know, places like California, Washington, Oregon, New Mexico, Nevada to some extent. And then, of course, up across the Northeast, you start in the Midwest with Chicago and Minneapolis, and then you go east. And about the time you get to Boston, which isn't far, right? And then just as you go east from there and throughout Massachusetts and Connecticut and all the New England states, it just continues to take a dump. It continues to get worse and worse. The economics continue to be worse and worse. The worse the economics get, the more taxes they take. The more taxes they take, the worse the economics get. And it's just a big spiral. And business, unlike government, can just pick up and move. And so when it gets hard enough, pretty soon the Chicago Bears are the Indiana Chicago Bears because you can't afford to build that thing in Chicago or Illinois, for that matter. The government has literally forced you out. Then the government does retarded things like what happens in Portland with the Trailblazers. If the owner of the Trailblazers has the brains in his head that I think he does, he is a billionaire. So what do I know? That this is all just a game as he's trying to move out, because where the Moda sits in Portland, the Moda Center sits in Portland, where the Blazers live, and what this whole thing is ostensibly about. Next to it sits the Memorial Coliseum. The Coliseum is where the Blazers played forever. It's this, cool glass box built in the 60s, which in its day was cool. It sits 12,955 people or something like that. So it's small by NBA standards, or small by really any size standard. But these idiots in Portland, it's in a very dilapidated area. The Moda Center and the Coliseum are side by side. It's in a dilapidated, crappy part of town, all run down industrial and a poor part of town. And yet they made the Coliseum a National Historic Monument. So it can't be torn down. Well, the Chicago Bears did the same thing. Well, the Chicago Bears didn't do it. The state did it. The city did it. Whoever allowed it to happen. It's also a national monument. So it can't be taken down. So some of the most valuable real estate in the city of Chicago won't have a team playing in it here at the rate things are going, and yet it cannot be torn down, even though it was built 50 years ago, and it's essentially a square shitbox, not unlike the Portland Trailblazer or the Coliseum in Portland. So what's that mean? You can't do any development, which is what these guys really want. They want to do development, and so when you come in, like what they did in Atlanta, Steve. Atlanta's a mid-market team, and yet it's the 5th highest revenue grossing team in the major leagues. Why? Because when you go to the stadium in Atlanta, it's surrounded by all kinds of infrastructure, all kinds of retail, all kinds of hotels, all kinds of condominiums. All of that is just combined everything together, and it's like one big party. And you don't even have to go to a game to go down there and have a good time. People are there every day, not just on game days, because there's people living there, there's people going there. They made it easy to get in and out. A huge infrastructure working with the city, working with the state, and working with the owners to put something in place that people want to go to. The Moda Center, there's nothing down there. Restaurants haven't. I was a season ticket holder for 20 years at the Portland Trailblazers. Restaurants tried to go in there, they came and went, because unless there was a game, unless there was a concert, there's nothing going on in that area. It's not an area that you go to. And so it'll never be an area that you go to because you can't build in it. And even if you could build in it, the idiots in these cities and these states have made it onerous. So let's say you could tear down the Chicago Stadium and put up a new one. You wouldn't want to. The city will never let you. The state will never let you. The Army Corps of Engineers at the federal government level will never let you. Building in these parts of the world is all but impossible, and it is only possible for the giant players because they have the money to go do this sort of thing. And so what you have is a huge disconnect from reality of the fans. And I've been online just for the last couple of weeks arguing like an idiot with people about the Portland Trailblazers and how let them go and we don't give away anything to billionaires. And I'm like, you idiots, this thing brings in $600 million a year. In all kinds of money being spent in all different ways. I contribute something like $300 million a year to the general fund, the city of Portland. Think about the taxes just on the employees, and then as the industry or as the corporation in and of itself. So you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of income, and yet the morons there who own the Moda Center, the city, do nothing to entice that guy to stay. The fans think that it's the big bad billionaire, and nobody points the finger where it should go, which is the local governments and the state governments. Portland, Oregon, and Chicago, Illinois is uninvestable. Portland more than Chicago. It's uninvestable because unless you are a giant monster and you have years of money, you're never going to build anything. And the pushback I've gotten is, oh, they're going to add here and they're going to add there. And I'm like, dudes, I was born there in 1969. The things you're talking about them adding, they have been talking about since 1969. It's never going to happen. But fans are ignorant and they're blinded by their devotion, which I think is a whole other problem, to sports teams, and they don't see the reality. So meanwhile, the government, state and local and federal, are stealing from you at an accelerated rate more and more every day, either through taxation or they make it so difficult and so expensive to build anything that you ultimately have to carry that cost in every single thing that you buy. But rather than get vehemently pissed off at the government, they scream and yell about a billionaire who, on their best day, cannot point a gun at you and make you do something, buy something, spend something, act a certain way that you don't want to, unlike what the government can. It's a fascinating social experiment to watch, the reaction that people will have to something like a billionaire or a team, rather than the reasons why the billionaire or the team is asking for all of these things, because your freaking city is dying and it's uninvestable.
Yeah, and the owner of the Trailblazers, the new owner, he knows how to be successful because he owns their Carolina Hurricanes, and they just won the Stanley Cup. And he had built up around Carolina the same thing Atlanta has, where you have that. So
Mhm.
he knows how to do it, knows how to build the area up, knows how to even put together a successful team. If Portland wants to go back, to getting a title of like the Walton days, to do that. He knows how to do it. But to your point, sounds like you have a little experience down with the regulatory process. I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. About
Just a
what it's
little.
like to try to develop and build on that. And speaking of that, I was looking and it looks like, maybe some of the borrowing rates are starting to go up a little bit. And I was curious, just as we kind of wrap up here, what's that do with your development that you have going on as far as when those rates change? Does that affect you, or how does that look for anybody that's looking at getting into developing something, would want to come in here and talk to people, as far as help understand how to do it more? Just a little bit of a touch of a financial side there. How does that affect what you do? Is it locked in, or is it something that does kind of change your cost or anything? How does that look?
Yeah, and it's not the rates. The rates aren't the problem for anybody getting into anything. It's not the rates. It's the regulation. I've said this before. Yes, rates get affected. My rates are locked in, so I'm not paying any more or less. I was already paying an inflated rate because I'm using hard money and not bank financing. Banks got out of that financing, 2000, that's good, 20 years ago, 18 years ago. Uh, it is so mine's fixed, but to your point, it's going to cost more to get into it today. But even that, I bought my house when I was 20 years old, $87,000, and I paid 12.5% interest. And that was a good investment at the time. The problem is not that the rates are high, it's that the cost of housing has gone up so exponentially that the high rates with the cost of housing has made housing pretty much unaffordable. And this is simply because of government, plain and simple. 100% sits on the back of governments. They wanted everybody to have a house, plain and simple. And when you push everybody to have a house, then it pushes up the price of everything. When your investment uh, retirement fund is your house, as an example, that's fine. But when the real estate is everybody's retirement fund, now you have everybody buying houses. The value of those houses continue to climb. And then with it comes these high interest rates, and you have this inflection point like we have now. And now you can't afford the same kind of houses that you were. You have a bunch of people stuck in houses they don't want to live in, but the interest rates are 3%, and they see the 6, 7% that we've got today, and they're like, we're not going anywhere near it. And so you have a stale, dead economy relative to real estate, relatively speaking, right, compared to where it was even 5, 10 years ago. But this is all created by the government. So the bigger issue isn't what you pay to do the development. The bigger issue is the impact government has on the costs of everything, and really what it costs to develop that property relative to the government. Because 31% of the cost of one of my completed houses is going to be government expenses, either because I had to carry it because it took 3, 4, 5, 6 years to get the development off the ground, and the administrative costs to push it all through, the delays that they continually have, the COVID mechanisms that they still operate under 2026 as an example. They make up rules in the middle of it, and if you don't follow them, they just put you to the bottom of the pile, and then you have to sue them all over again. The Army Corps of Engineer restrictions that are nonsensical that you have to battle, and all of those battles have 6-month timeframes on them. Dealing with the cities that many times are unregulated, so they're allowed to do whatever they want, i.e., if they don't like what you're doing, they just don't process it. There is and then right down to stupid regulations that you don't need: curb heights, turnaround distances, wetlands that are unremarkable and make no sense at all, green spaces, the way that we have to do sewage, the way that you have to deal with waste, or with stormwater, right? It's all ridiculous. These multi-level platforms that you have to build in, and they all fill up with garbage, and the people throw them away, and they ended up costing more because you got to go in and clean them constantly, because their idea is this one fills up and then it just spills the water over and leaves all the garbage. This is out in the middle of neighborhoods. It's like a pipe dream for blue haired morons with shit in their face. How they would like to world to work. And so then they dictate it, and in reality, the world doesn't work that way. And pretty soon, you're spending $350 a foot on a house. Combine that with social pressure that says that I want a house with 2-car garage, and I want a 3-bedroom with 3 baths and a living room and a family room and a dining room, and I need a den, and I need a music room, right? So now that's 2,800, 3,000 square feet as opposed to the 1,200, 1,100. How big was your house, the first house you bought, Steve?
First one was 1,800 square feet.
1,800 square feet. So your first house was 1,800 square feet. My first house was 1,100 square feet, right? I think mine is probably way more closer to the mean for our age than today. And I don't know what the average house today got to be 2,500, 2,800, 2,800 square feet. New house, I should say, right? Nobody's building 1,100 square foot houses. Nobody needs, everything's got to have a garage or 2-car garage rather than carports. When I was a kid, I didn't know anybody had a garage for the most part. It just wasn't one of those things that was built in the houses coming out of the 50s and 60s. The car was in the driveway. There's songs about this. There's stories about cars being in the driveway. Well, now they have to have all of these things. So it's unaffordable, but you can't afford to build a 1,200 square foot house that somebody might be able to afford because the land underneath of it is so expensive to develop because of the government and because of inflation and what the government has done to cause that you have to put a certain level house, a certain size house on that property in order to justify the $200,000 or $300,000 that you have to get for that finished completed lot on the bottom. So it's not the case. California, you can, or Texas, and a lot of places, smaller towns, you can get houses that are more reasonable, $150 a foot. But right now, you go to any of these, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, California, across the Midwest, up into the Northeast, you're gonna spend $300, $400, $450, $500 a foot. Meanwhile, in Texas, you can get them for $100 a foot.
Yeah, I saw some pictures of that where people are putting up what that was, even compared to what we live in the Franklin area, which is an anomaly for
Right.
that. But given even in general Tennessee, but it was kind of amazing what you could get for a house there. It's just if you want to move. And it's really interesting about that Texas movement. And I can't help but think the politics going on in New York isn't playing into that some factor too. It's kind of looking down the road and the financial center of the country. I was watching that documentary on it about when New York kind of became that, but they overtook Philadelphia because in the early days, it was Philadelphia was all the finance. And New York was this new rival. It wasn't even New York. Philadelphia was the city
Right.
that was all that back in the 1800s. It wasn't New York, and that's why they still have a
Right.
mint there and stuff. But it was actually that, and then it shifted as people just went to New York because of the size of the city, maybe some other things. So it's interesting to kind of keep an eye on this to see what this develops. They definitely, like you said, they have the support, they have the money, they have the idea, and I think even you have the New York ones like, yeah, the way the environment's getting here, would be nice to breathe again, and just do business.
I think people will go out with this, but I want everybody to remember it's important to know our history, people. It's important to know what reality is and what reality used to be, because it's easy, because the United States is the number one propaganda country that puts out the most propaganda, the United States government, easily. And all of its lackeys in the media love to do the same thing and just follow suit. So most of what we're told on a daily basis is simply a lie. And then perspective and experience plays a big part in it. If you think New York has to be there because that's where it is, I would understand that, because most people believe that. It's just a business, and it can pick up and it can move just the same as any business. New York doesn't have to be the international hub for financial. It could be, or for financing. It could be anywhere. It just happens to be that's where it all came together, to your point. But we have to remember, the biggest city in the world is Tokyo, Japan, something like 36 million people. I have been there. You can eat off of a full subway. And when I say full subway, you get on a subway car in Japan, that thing's packed in places like Tokyo. But you can eat off the floor. You can eat off the street, right? Everywhere you go, there is a level of cleanliness that you don't believe. Go look at videos of Russia, right? And go to Moscow and look in the subways, and you're going to see very ornate, very fantastic architecture and absolutely clean streets. New York is a third world dump that just flooded last weekend. The Holland Tunnel just flooded last weekend. Stallone made a movie in the 80s about the tunnels flooding in New York. So these cities are crumbling, right? They tax higher than anything anywhere else in the country. It is onerously expensive to live there. Why should they? And the infrastructure is falling apart and they do nothing about it. And so the rats have overtaken New York City, I mean, in a huge way, but it is filthy. The subways are filthy. The streets are filthy. The entire place stinks on a way that other cities don't, but other cities throughout the world don't. But Americans, we just believe because we live in our own little bubble and nobody ever goes anywhere that that's the way it has to be. But go to another country in another part of the world, go to another city in another part of the world, and you'll quickly find out that those cities are clean. There's not a lot of crime and things are going well relative to the quality of life that they have. So places like New York, Philadelphia, again, Chicago. Steve and I went to Chicago a couple years ago. I've been 100 times. I'm not going back. It smelled like piss. It was a third world shithole. And it cost me $50 to park on a Saturday afternoon to go get pizza.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. So much of those big buildings were all boarded up down there, and I can't imagine it's even better with the policies and the way they're
Right.
going. Like I said, they lost the Bears. It's Indiana. They'll still keep the name Chicago, but now Indiana, being set a little bit more like Tennessee as far as tax-based structure and everything, and something proximity, now has two pro football teams. As soon as that thing gets built out.
Right.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode of the Kronos Group. If some of this stuff kind of triggered your interest, you want to have more conversations like this around business, kind of business topics, ideas that are going on, your health, relationships, things like that, be sure to look at the link below for the Kronos Group School Community, and it's called The Forge. Get into The Forge. You can get in there. You can have weekly calls like we have coming up next with Jerry. It's Ask Me Anything, ask questions, get your answers to things. You can get in there and there's courses and things you can learn to really grow as maybe a budding entrepreneur or somebody that's thinking about the entrepreneur, or maybe you just want to be around men, getting your health and relationships kind of screwed on, the right way. So look for the link below. If you're a business owner doing over $1 million a year, we do have cohorts, and the cohorts is a peer-to-peer advisory group where you just sit at the table with Jerry and 9 others and just kind of work on your hardest problems. Put yourself in a position where you're not making those $100,000 mistakes by yourself. Get somebody to bounce it off, figure out what's going on, and get some help overcome the obstacles you face in that. And that's for the Kronos cohorts. Look down below. There'll be a link for that. Definitely check us out in the school community. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one. And remember, opportunities are everywhere, but you got to go get them.
Peace out.